Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. I'm doing just Daf It, Daf Yom Shir. We're finishing Perek Elu Naros, Daf Mem Aleph and Kesubos 41. It's an amazing feat. 3 prakim. Second Kesubos, you prepare yourselves. We'll go on to the next Perek, Narish is Fatata. Tomorrow, we have an interesting shir today. We're going to be talking about the concept of knas, getting fined. If you ever got a driving ticket, right? Or for speeding or things like that would fall under the rubric of a fine. So what exactly is a fine? We'll discuss that today in the Gemara. Talk about chati nezek. If your shore gores, it's a tam. Or let's say your car, right? I always think that shore, obviously they used to have shores, ox. They used to breed ox. They used to grow ox in their farm. There were farmers back then. Now we have cars. I think a car nowadays would be the equivalent of an ox. There's a car called a Taurus. If you know what that is, that's Taurus is April. The April. What's it called? In April sign is a Taurus. What is it? It's the field called. I don't know. When you have Scorpio and Pisces, Gemini, those things. Taurus is the one for April. I was born in April, so I'm a Taurus. I used to drive a Ford Taurus, actually. My parents had an old, I think it was 1997 Ford Taurus. A nice green one. It was turquoise green for Ford Taurus. Drove it for many years. Taurus is, right, basically an ox. So there's cars nowadays, and just like shvor and shorim, there's tam and muad. We'll learn about that in Masechet Baba Kama. A shor could be a tam or it could be a muad. It could be the first time you get into an accident, it's a tam. You only pay chati nezek. 3 times you get warned, you pay the full price. This is not the way it works in the court system, neither in America or in Israel. But if it did in the Jewish law, it's possible that's the way it works. So if you ever get into an accident, you just say, hey, Gemara Baba Kama, Gemara Kesubos, chati nezek. We'll talk about whether it's a knas or it's mammon, and whether someone can collect, even though technically nowadays you can't collect outside, even in Eretz Israel, but definitely outside of Eretz Israel. We'll see what the practical ramifications are nowadays. Let's start with the Mishnah on top of Mem Aleph and Aleph. Omer pasisi es bito shel ploni. Someone says he admits to court before the girl comes and takes him to court, or the father of the girl takes him to court. He admits, he says, I seduced her. She was a nara, right? So you have to pay 50 kesef. Mishalim boshes of gam al pi atzmo. Right? Who does baldin kamei edom davim? When you are mechayiv yourself in financial restitution, which boshes and gam are, because you embarrassed her and you devalued her, you have to pay. Mishalim knas. You don't have to pay the knas for the Islam, because there's a concept the Gemara Baba Kama learns, Asher Shiun Elokim, that knas has to be meted out by Beis Din. If Beis Din, a valid Beis Din that has smicha from the time Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't have that anymore, it has to be meted out by Beis Din. However, a knas, someone who's Mesim Atzmo Russia, sort of, right? He's moded to the knas. He says, B'tida as B'tida, he's Machai himself in a knas. That's not called Asher Shiun Elokim. That's called who Marshias Atzmo. He made himself a person chayiv in knas. Based in gives out knasos, not people. People can't be mechayiv of the knas, so automatically he's pater. And even if they would come afterwards and try to be mechayiv the knas, he already patered himself. It's a patur objectively. That's ostensibly what it is from the Gemara Baba Kama, the Gemara Ayin Hey in Baba Kama. If you come to court, you can actually exempt yourself from the knas payment. Omer ganavti. Similarly, if you say I stole, mishalim is like Karen. You have to pay the restitution, the value of what you stole. Either give it back, or if it's not around, pay for its value. Al pi atzmo mishalim tishlam mekel tishlam arba b'chamisha. The Gemara in Baba Kama details that kefel paying double tishlam arba b'chamisha, when not only you steal it stealthily, but also you shecht it or sell it, you're chayiv 4 or 5. You're not chayiv if you do it al pi atzmo. These are krasos, right? Prat l'marshias atzmo. Hemi shori as ploni, o shoro shel ploni. If my shore gorged another person, a Jew, right, and killed him, o shoro shel ploni, or another shore and killed another shore, raise him a shanal piatzmo. These are restitutions. right? We're going to learn in being in Masachos Makos, right? And also in Baba Kama, right? You pay kofer. If your shor kills a regular Jew, you have to pay kofer, either the value of the mazik or the value of the nizak. It's a machlokes, the value of the owner of the person whose shor it was, or the person who died, whatever his value is. That's a monetary restitution. You have to pay that. Does baldin kamei edom dam? You're chayav to prepare yourself to pay it based on your own testimony. Hemi shor obvious shel ploni. However, if you say you're sure, you admit before they prosecute you that you're sure gored an eved of someone else's eved knaini. So the Gemara says that you pay 30 kesef, 30 slime, 30 silver coins. Ein mishalom piyasma. That's a knas. You don't pay if you testify first. That klal kol mishalom yesel mashes again mishalom piyasma. You pay more than the value of what you're mazik, which is usually a knas, right? It's usually a fine. You're not going to pay based on your own testimony. Moed beknas pater. You pater yourself. The Gemara says, "Velisni anasti." Why does it say pasisi? Right? There's two cases where you pay 50 coins, right? Onus and pita. Why did it pick up? Why did the Mishnah specify only pitoy? Let me buy anasti. That's obvious anasti. Look up pagim law, right? He's testifying. I raped her, right? He's not saying something bad about her. The mishal and boshish pagam. Therefore, he has to pay boshish pagam. There, al biatzmo. Right, that's why he who does baldin kamei edom dam, he's mechayev himself in the monetary restitution of boshish and pagam. Ava basisi, the kapogim law, right? When he says I seduced her, now he's basically testifying that I asked her to be with me, and she agreed, right? She said yes, or she said no, but she meant yes. So the fact is that you're giving a bad name to the girls. So maybe we shouldn't believe somebody to give a bad name to the girls. If we believe them, make them pay, everyone's going to say, oh, it's true. Right, he seduced her and she agreed. A 12-year-old girl, she's pretty promiscuous, right? Got pagim like ema lo mishal. Maybe we shouldn't believe him. Kamash Milan. No, the Mishnah informs you that he is believed. That's what the Mishnah says. Basisi because of Boshish Pagam. Whereas this is the lokai tana. Our Mishnah is not like the following tana. The sign of Rishimon Yehuda Omer Mishumar B'Shimon Af Boshish Pagam Eno Mishal Piatzmo. In the case of Pito, he doesn't pay Boshish Pagam. Lo Kol Imano Sheyivkom Pito Shal Ploni. He like the Gemara's svara, the Gemara's suggestion. You don't have the right to say something bad. We don't believe you to make, to confirm allegations against a girl and make her look bad. What about if she says, no, I'd rather have the money? Okay, so what? I'm promiscuous. Who cares? I'd rather have the money. Maybe we should give it. Somewhere says, no, really, the money usually goes to the father, so maybe her father's not happy about it. So she still wouldn't get it. What if she says she wants it and her father says she wants it? No, there's still pagam, there's still devaluation, there's still bad reputation for her family besides her and her father. So pagam, Shimon Yehuda says he doesn't have the right to defame her, to give her a bad name. Right? That's going to affect her whole family. Let's say her whole family concurs, we want the money. You have a one from relative, right? Even though the whole family's secular, and they say, I don't care if the girl's promiscuous, get the money. But you have that one firm relative, in Eretz Yisrael, Dina Sayam, in Cyprus, I don't know where you have, and a from Jew, and he said, I don't want people saying this about my third cousin. So therefore, based on that alone, according to Shimon Yehuda, we don't paskin like this. The reason we don't paskin like this is because on the most cases, people would rather have the money than she's not saying she's completely promiscuous. She got seduced. She's a young girl. She got seduced. So therefore, that's probably why the Tanakama holds. We do believe her. It's not such a devaluation. It's not such a bad reputation for her. She got seduced. It wasn't her fault. Homer ganafti mishalim es hakeren. Itmar paganizka. Chatzi nezek, right? Sure, you have an ox. Famous case in Balakam, an ox that gores, right? Gores with its horn, its body. Hey, Karen. Paganizka, let's say it's only a tam. It's never done it before. It's never done it 3 times and worn, right? Rav Papa or Paganizka Mamona. The half that you have to pay, the tam only pays half the chatzi nezek. Now chatzi nezek is considered monetary restitution, right? You're paying for the value that you devalue the other person's shore, the other person's property. Or Rav Papa or Paganizka Mamona. Who already show or Paganizka knas? He says basically you shouldn't be paying anything at all. It's a fine, right? We fine you to deter you from doing such, to watch your shore. Even a tam shore, they're wild. Oxes are wild, especially if they're not neutered, Right, a lot of oxes nowadays are neutered. If they're neutered, right, then they're called a cow, or I think that's the difference between a steer and a cow. A steer are not neutered. A bullock is not neutered. A cow would be neutered. So they're not neutered, so therefore a lot of Kesubos they're wild, even if they haven't gored at all. But the Mishal and Kule, he's responsible to wash his shore. The fact that his shore gored, he should pay the whole thing. However, the Torah had compassion on him because he didn't get warned yet. He didn't get warned, so it's not that all shvarim are wild, but a lot of them are. So you didn't get warned, so you only have to pay half. The Torah had rachmanas on you. Really, you don't have to pay anything. It's a knas, it's a deterrent. Right? We don't assume a shore is going to gore something. You shouldn't pay anything. It's not your fault. The Torah said if your shore gores, you have to pay half. Because there are some wild oxen, so therefore make sure your ox is kept in check, so it shouldn't damage other property. So therefore, it deters you from. You should watch it in order to give you a knas to deter you from letting your animal roam free. Right? This mission in Baba Kam on Daf It, Nizak, the person who gets damaged, and the Mazak, the person who damages, they're both involved in payment. We're trying to decide who the halacha is like. Is it like Rav Papa, who says Palganizka Mamon, or like Rav Hun Bar Yeshua, Palganizka Knasa? This is basically the rest of the Gemara is going to discuss. So the Gemara says, we say that really he's chayav to pay the full amount, and the reason he pays half, the Torah Rachmanos on him. And therefore, the one who got gored, whose animal got gored, so therefore he's part of the tashlumin because he has to deduct half of it. Really, he's chayav to pay the full thing. And Nizak is part of the tashlumin, and that he loses half. Really, I should be paying nothing. He's only getting, right, knas that the Nizak gets is only something he really shouldn't get, right? But tashlumin, he's not part of the tashlumin. When Israel the pras nevela, the Gemara says no, the Nizak is part of the tashlumin in regard to a different halacha, right? When my shore gores a different shore and kills that shore, so now part of the payment, right? Let's say my shore is worth $200. Of course, your shore is also worth $200. Now your shore is dead, but the carcass has value, meaning for the meat to sell to non-Jews, and you could also the leather of the cow you can make into belts, into shoes, into sofas. You can do stuff with it. So let's say now the carcass is worth 100. So technically, I only have to pay back 100. You keep your carcass, and I pay back 100, the remainder that I owe you. But what about if the carcass goes down in value, right? Non-kosher meat goes down, or leather, the price of leather goes down from the time that the goring happened until Hamada Bedin, until you come to Beis Din. Who loses out, right? Pras Nevelos. The Gemara says, the Gemara Baba Kama says, the Pras Nevela, that the Nizak, the person, loses out, right? Even though it was worth 100, so even though now at the time you come to court it's worth 50, we still assess it to be worth 100. Tanina, we know that somewhere else. The first Mishnah in Baba Kama. What is it? Those words in the Mishnah come to say. To tell you that the Bailim are the ones in charge of the Nevela, and if it goes down in value, they're responsible. So why did the second Mishnah have to tell me that? My answer is one Mishnah taught about an animal which is a tam, right, which didn't previously gore 3 times. But one. And the second Mishnah is talking about a muad. The shricha, I need 2 mishnayos. Yes, from a tam. If you say a tam, right, that the owner has to matapel of an avail, he has to deal with an avail. If it goes down in value, he loses out. Mishum dakati lo ayid. Right? The reason the mazik doesn't have to pay for it is because his shore wasn't warned yet. Of a muad the ayid, right? The shore muad which is warned. Emalo. I would say in that case, maybe you don't get the benefit of devaluation of carcass. V'yashmin on muad. If we would say by a muad, mishum the kamishal and kule, or Torah is requiring to pay everything already, so therefore he's paying a large amount out. So the Torah may be at Rachmanos that you only, if a carcass goes down in value, you don't pay for all of it. About tam, you calculate it before the devaluation. About tam, ain't well low, but tam you're only paying half. I would say no, right? We're machmer to make sure you get as much half as possible. Sricha. Therefore, it says in both cases, Tashma, ma ben tam lemuad, shetam mishalem chatzin nezek megufo, muad mishalem nezek shalem. This is a Mishnah also in Baba Kama. The Mishnah asks, what's the difference between a tam and a muad practically? A tam only pays chatzin nezek. Okay, we discussed whether chatzin nezek is mamon or knas. And he also pays migufo, meaning it has to be from the body of the shor tam. So let's say the shor tam was worth $100, and the shor muad, and the shor that it gores is worth $800, right? So you pay half the value of what you gored, $800, $400. However, the shore that you had gored was only worth $100. So therefore, even though technically chatzin nezek telling me you pay $400, you only pay me gufo from the value of the shore that gored. So the shore that gored, the ox that gored, is only worth $100. So all he pays is $100. It's another kula. But muad mishal piatzma, muad mishal nezek shal, he pays the entire value. Min aliyah, he pays even the shore that gored is only worth $100. You have to pay from not only from $800, you also have to pay from the shibud on your nechasim, your land, right? Your best land. Not only the nezek pays not just from the baininess or the ziboris, the bad land or the average land, the best land you have to pay. There's a lien on that land to collect the $800. Velokasani, listing those two differences, doesn't say a third difference. A time we should say if really chatzin nezek is a knas, right? Like Rabbi Yeshua says, we should say the tam. Right, if he admits to it before they take him to Beis Din, then he's pater from it. A muad mishal piatzmo, and muad, if he admits to it, he is mechayev das bal and k'me'edim. That's definitely mamon. Whereas the Tana v'shai, really it could be a knas, but the Tana left other things out. There are other differences. My shire to high shire. What else did? If we're going to assume it's leaving out things, it has to leave at least two things. So what else did it leave out? Shire chatzi kofer left out chatzi kofer. What's chatzi kofer? Right, if you're sure gores a Jew, right, and kills him. So you have to pay kofer, which is the value of the person, ve'mazek and me'nizak, right? What if you're sure is a tam that kills a person? If it's a shar muad, you have to pay the full price of the person that you killed, his value. However, or your value, the value of the owner of the animal that gored. However, what if he's a shar tam? So is there a din of chatzi kofer or not? Do you pay chatzi kofer or not? So they left out chatzi kofer, right? That chatzi kofer is another difference between them, between a tam and a muad. Right, that there is no chatzi kofer. The tam doesn't pay chatzi kofer, and muad does pay chatzi kofer. Does pay kofer, right? Im b'shum chatzi kofer lav shiuru. The Gemara says that's not something that it left out. Hamani, you could say, Tav mem aleph mem beis, Rabbi Yossi clearly damar tam mishalem chatzi kofer. No. Didn't leave anything out about chatzi kofer because Rabbi Yossi clearly holds that there is a din of chatzi kofer. You do pay half when your tam gores someone kills a Jew, you pay chatzi kofer. And muad pays kofer shalom. So it's exactly like goring a shore, goring another animal, or goring someone else's property, killing another person. Right? There is chatzi kofer and kofer. That's not a shiura. Tashma. Let's try to bring another proof to whether it's a knas or a mammon. Him is shori as ploni from our Mishnah. Right, you admit that your shor killed Ploni, or shor shel Ploni, or his property, or another ox. Harezim mishalom al piatzmo. You have to pay al piatzmo, meaning so does Baal and Kmedim is restitution. My lab tam. Aren't we talking about a tam here in this mission, including both cases, a tam and a muad, right? And therefore you have to pay. It's mamona, like Rav Papa says, and therefore it does Baal and Kmedim. The Gemara is low and muad. Our mission is only talking about a muad, where it's a knas. Where it's not a knas, it's mamon. About batam mai. So what are you going to say with tam mai? Eno mishal piasmo. It's a knas. You're potter. Altani seifa abdo shel ploni. The mission continues. That says if you're sure gores an evid knaini that belongs to your friend, eno mishal piasmo, you don't pay on your own accord because it's a knas. Niflog v'nisna b'dida say a more pertinent distinction. Medra amurim b'muad. Right when you're sure gores a person, a Jew, or another property, or another ox. That's only talking about a shor muad. Al tam and a mishal piasmo. A tam, forget about an evid knaini. A tam, a short tam that gores, right? It's a knas, and it's more of a knas potter. And where it says kula muad kamairi. No, we don't want to say that because the whole mishnah just happens to be talking about a shor muad. Shor tam technically could be a knas. The tashma. Try to bring up further proof. Zak klal, the end of our mishnah. Kol mishalim yashal piasha hizik and mishalim piasmo. You pay more than the value of what you damaged, right? So you don't pay on your own accord because motiv knas potter ha pachas masha hizik. However, if you pay less, like chatzin nezek mishalim piatzmo, So you see, Chatzi Nezek is Mamona. But Lo Tema Ha Pachos Masha Hizik, don't say less than the value of what he damaged. The Mishnah meant to say, it wasn't literal when it said yes or Masha Hizik. It just meant yes or Pachos, right? If it's exactly the value, if you're paying exactly the value of what it gored, that's Mamona. If it's more or less, then it's Knas. Pachos ma'is. The Gemara continues. Pachos ma'is. Ena mashal piatzmo. Listen to Zak Klal. Ena mashal k'mashizik. Ena mashal piatzmo. It should say. It should be more meduyak. It should be more precise in the Mishnah, the lashon of the Mishnah, the language of the Mishnah. It should say, if it's the value, if you're paying the value of what it gored, so then it's mamon, it's restitution. Hodas baldin k'mei d'dam you're chayiv. If it's more or less, then it should be a knas. You're pater. The mashma pachos. Listening to that, the right, it would have the implication of both more and less. Tiyufta. So seemingly it's a good disproof from the Mishnah. It must be that Chatzi Nezek is Mammon. The Gemara said, the Gemara immediately changes course. No, the halacha is that it's Knas. So the Gemara wonders, Tiyufta v'hilchasa? We just disproved it. We showed it was Mammon. And now you're passing the halacha, it's a Knas. Whereas it's we're justifying. Yeah, time of Ma'i Sose. What was the reason we disproved it from Mishnah? Mishum delokasani kama shehizik. Right? It didn't say exactly how much it pays. It should have included, right? It should have said that if it meant to include even where it's less. Lo psikole. It can't say less. Kevan the ika chasin electros. It didn't want to say cases of less because there are cases that are less are actually restitution. For example, chatzin nezek sroros, which basically means, just to review a little bit, or to give a preview of, if you've never learned Bava Kama, there's three basic punishments that assure your property goring can, your property incurring damage could have. It's called your animal gores. Well, it's called Karen, Shane, and Regal. Karen is where it basically damages something with its body, and Shane is where it eats something, and Regal is where Regal is through its walking. While it walks, it damages through its walk. So if you damage directly through your walking, that's Regal, you pay Nezek Shal. Only Karen does a Tam pay Chatzi Nezek. Not a warned animal 3 times pays Chatzi Nezek. Shane and Regal, even if it's not warned, you pay the full amount right away. However, when it comes to Chatzi Nezek Sroros, so the animal's walking and it doesn't directly step on something, it just causes pebbles to fly, which is sort of a grama, and damages. So therefore, the halach, it's halach l'moshe mesina. The Gemara says in Baba Kama Yud Zayin, 17, Daf 17 Baba Kama, that you pay halach l'moshe mesina. You pay Chatzi Nezek, only half payment, even though it's regal, and that's considered a restitution payment. It's not considered a knas. So therefore, we can't say anything less because we have other cases that are actually mamona. So now we're saying that we're passing a point of Yeshua that Chatzi Nezek is a knas. High kalba da'achal imri. If you have a vicious dog, you have a bulldog, you have a dog that's a pretty not tame animal, it eats sheep. V'shunra da'achal tarnagol. There you have a cat, a wild cat that's eating chickens, ravravi, big chickens. Meshunahu v'lo magbina bavel. It's considered abnormal. Now, even though when your dog eats sheep, that's called shane, and normally you'd pay nezek shalim, the full amount. However, if it does something that's not normally done, it's called meshuna. It's weird, right? Most dogs are not vicious. They don't eat animals or eat sheep. So that's considered weird. So that falls under a tolda of Karen. So it goes back to Karen, and therefore it's Chatzi Nezek. If it's Tam, if the dog wasn't warned before, so it's Chatzi Nezek, and it's considered a Knas. So now it's a Knas. You can't, because it's a Knas, you can't collect it in Bavel. It means basically, this is talking about the time of the Gemara. At the time of the Gemara, they had Bati Diyam in Eretz Yisrael. They had Smicha, still attached from Moshe Rabbeinu. They still had formal Smicha. In Bavel, they didn't have formal Smicha at that point. Our Smicha nowadays has nothing to do with the Smicha of the Gemara to make a base din. Our Smicha just means you know Yeridea, you know a couple halachas about kashrus. I don't know how they get away with giving Smicha to Rabbanim just for no halachas kashrus. There's so many other halachas. You know, we're taking 6.5 years in my Shulchan Aruch Yom Yisher to finish all of Shulchan Aruch. You go to Basar B'chalav, you already get Smicha. Anyway, it's not real Smicha what we have nowadays. But at that time in Eretz Yisrael, they did have Smicha, and Bavel they didn't have Smicha. So you can't collect it in Bavel because in order to collect it, you need alokim, you need dayanim. which have smicha, not just regular based and have yotos. Even if they're knowledgeable, it doesn't make a difference. You can't collect it in Bavel. Aval zutre, however, if your wild cat eats small chickens, orchehu magbina, that's normally what it is. It's shane, and therefore it's considered a payment, restitution, and you can collect restitution nowadays. Just like you can go to a din Torah and collect monetary restitution. Be tafas, however, if you're tofes the knas, even though you can't collect it in Bavel, lo mafkinam, you're allowed to keep it. We'll see why, and Ian with Ben Sion, why you're allowed to keep it. Let's say he says, I want to go with you, come with me to a court in Israel where they do judge knasos. We do make that date in a court, and they both have to travel to Eretz Yisrael. If he doesn't go, he doesn't want to go, the person who's obviously has to pay the knas, put him in nidoy, even if they don't, the guy says he doesn't want to go to Eretz Yisrael, still we put this guy in sort of nidoy. If you have a wild dog or a wild cat, you have to get rid of it. So a person should not allow a wild dog to grow up in his house. You shouldn't have a rickety ladder in your house where it could just break when you're climbing up. Torah warns you about makkah, right? You have to put a fence around your roof, so you shouldn't fall off your roof. These are also examples that if you have a wild dog, you can potentially injure or kill people. And same with a cat, also you have to get out of your house. Certainly, if you have a wild shore, an ox or a wild snake, you have to get out of it. You can't have these things in your house. It's a violation of midoraisa. It might not only kill other people, it might kill you also. I don't know what they say about having guns nowadays. There was an unfortunate story here in Telstone a couple years ago. A neighbor who lived a couple of houses above me, couple apartments above me, he had a gun. A lot of people here in Israel have guns for self-protection, especially if you live in certain areas, more dangerous. He had a gun. Apparently, no one knows exactly what happened, but he was loading the gun and it was pointed towards him. And he thought there were no bullets in it, and he shot himself and killed himself. They say it was a mistake. My mistake, didn't realize there was a bullet in the gun. He ended up killing himself. So having a gun in your house, is that called losasam dam beisach? They say, people usually, there's more deaths that result from having a gun in your house than from intruders, right? And you have a gun protected against intruders. Usually it works out the opposite. Unfortunately, if someone dies, it's usually someone in their household. Anyway, that's the conclusion of today's share. Whether you can ask a rabbi whether it's a violation of losasam dam beisach. Hope you enjoyed today's share. And you can also ask Ben Shapiro if it violates the Second Amendment of the Constitution. The Torah prohibits you from having a weapon in your house. Hope you enjoyed today's shir. Stay tuned for Ian with Ben Sion, where we discuss more about the psak halacha that is a knas. God says it's a knas. And now about this thing, if you go ahead to the person who owes you a knas and you take the animal or you take monetary restitution, which is the value of the knas, you don't have to return it. Why not? What if you take more? You have to return it. The Raisa, the Rabbanan, a lot to talk about. Malchus Rabbeinu Tam and the Rush. Stay tuned. Coming up next.